The young man lived a very quiet life. He was not famous. He was not rich. He didn't have many friends either. Most days, he went from home to work, and from work back to home. His world was small, calm, and predictable. People around him saw him as kind but distant. He smiled politely, helped when asked, and never tried to become the center of attention. Deep inside, he carried a soft heart and a desire to feel something real, something that would make his simple life feel meaningful. He lived in a small town where everyone knew each other. The roads were narrow, the houses stood close, and the evenings were peaceful. He enjoyed walking alone after finishing work. The cool evening air felt comforting, and the sound of distant voices mixed with the soft noise of birds returning to their nests. He often visited a small public place where people came to sit quietly, think, or just take a break from life. That place felt safe to him. It felt like a corner where he could breathe freely without any expectations. One evening, as he sat on a wooden bench, he noticed someone new. A young woman sat a few steps away. She wasn't loud or attention-seeking. She simply sat there, holding a small bag in her hands and staring at the sky. There was something about her stillness that caught his attention. She looked calm but also lost in thought, as if she was carrying a story inside her heart. At first he didn't want to stare. He looked away quickly, feeling shy for even noticing her. He told himself that it didn't matter, but somehow his eyes moved back toward her again and again. He wondered who she was, where she came from, and what she was thinking about. The funny thing was, he didn't feel curious in a rude way. He felt curious in a gentle way, like a quiet pull that he didn't understand. They didn't talk that day. They didn't even smile at each other. They just existed in the same quiet space for a few minutes before leaving. But something changed inside him. The walk back home felt different. The air felt softer. The road felt less lonely. He kept thinking about how peaceful she looked and how strange it felt to share silent space with a stranger who felt familiar the next day. He went back to the same place at the same time. Though he told himself he had just come for fresh air, he sat on the same bench. He watched the people passing by. For a while she didn't appear. He felt a small disappointment inside, but he tried to ignore it. Then, after a few minutes, he saw her again. She walked slowly and sat in almost the same spot as before. This time she glanced in his direction for a second. Their eyes met very briefly. Both of them looked away quickly, feeling a soft embarrassment. But it wasn't an uncomfortable feeling. It was light, almost sweet. Days passed like this. Neither of them spoke. They just shared quiet space. Sometimes they came at the same time, sometimes they didn't. But whenever they did, there was a strange sense of comfort. It felt like two lonely hearts recognized each other without using words. One afternoon, as the sky began to turn orange and the wind felt cooler, something changed. A small book slipped from her hands and fell to the ground near his feet. He picked it up without thinking and walked a few steps toward her. His heart was beating faster. His hands felt slightly shaky. He gently handed her the book. She looked surprised, then smiled softly and thanked him. Her voice was gentle and calm. That simple word, "thank you," stayed with him long after he walked back to his seat. That small moment broke the invisible wall between them. From that day, small interactions started happening naturally. Sometimes he nodded when he saw her. Sometimes she smiled. They still didn't talk much, but the silence didn't feel heavy anymore. One evening, rain started suddenly. People around them hurried to find shelter. He stood up and looked at her without thinking. He pointed toward a nearby covered area. She understood and walked beside him under the shelter. They didn't touch. They didn't stand too close. But they shared the sound of rain together. They talked for the first time that day. Not long conversations. Just simple words. About the weather. About how fast the rain came. About how peaceful the sound of rain felt. Their voices were low, careful, and gentle, as if they didn't want to scare away the calm they were creating. From that day, their conversations slowly grew. They talked about simple things. Favorite foods. Tired feelings after work. Childhood memories. Nothing fancy. Nothing dramatic. Just real, honest words. They found comfort in how similar their thoughts were. Both of them liked simple things. Both of them felt like they never truly fit in loud crowds. He noticed how she listened carefully when he spoke. She never interrupted him. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he felt heard. She felt the same way. She felt seen in a world that often ignored her. They never rushed anything. They didn't talk about love or feelings. They just let things grow slowly, like a plant that grows stronger because it is given time. Some evenings, they just sat beside each other without talking. And strangely, those quiet moments felt just as powerful as words. He realized something important during those silent sittings. He felt at peace beside her. His worries felt lighter. His heart felt warmer. He started looking forward to those evenings more than anything else. Work felt easier because he knew he would see her later. The long roads didn't feel long anymore. The small town felt alive. She also felt the change in her heart. She found herself smiling more. She felt safer. The world didn't feel so heavy when she was near him. Neither of them said it out loud. But something pure had started growing between them. It wasn't loud love. It wasn't dramatic love. It was quiet, gentle, slow, and real. And without even realizing it, both of their lives had already started to change. After that day of sitting under the shelter during the rain, their lives started to feel softer. They began to recognize each other's footsteps before even turning around. The small public place slowly became their little corner of peace. It wasn't something they talked about, but both of them felt it in their hearts. Their conversations grew longer, but they stayed simple. They talked about things that mattered in quiet ways. They talked about tired mornings, long work hours, small dreams, and childhood memories that still lived inside them. Every word felt honest. They didn't try to impress each other. They just tried to understand. The young man found himself listening more. When she spoke, he paid attention to every detail. He noticed how her eyes changed when she talked about things she loved. He noticed the way her voice became softer when she spoke about things that made her sad. He never judged her. He never tried to fix her. He just listened, and that was enough for her. The young woman started looking forward to those evenings more than she ever expected. Her days felt lighter because she knew she would sit beside someone who made her feel calm. She found comfort in the way he respected her silence. He never pushed her to speak when she didn't want to. He just sat there, gently present. Slowly, friendship started turning into something deeper. But neither of them rushed to name it. They didn't talk about love. They didn't make big promises. They just let their connection grow the way flowers grow after rain. Quietly and naturally. There were small moments that started to feel special. Sometimes he would bring an extra cup of tea and set it near her without saying much. Sometimes she would save a small snack from her home and quietly offer it to him. These were simple acts, but they meant a lot. They were their silent ways of saying, "I care." One evening, they walked a long way together for the first time. The sky was filled with soft clouds, and the air felt cool. They talked about life and dreams. He admitted that he often felt invisible in the world. She shared that she often felt misunderstood. In that moment, they both felt less alone. He realized that he laughed more when he was with her. The kind of laugh that came from inside, not the fake kind people used around others. For the first time in years, his heart felt light. She noticed how safe she felt when she walked beside him. He didn't walk too fast or too slow. He matched her steps naturally. That small gesture touched her deeply. It made her feel respected in a way she had never felt before. As time passed, people around them started noticing the change. Neighbors saw them sitting together often. They saw their quiet smiles, their calm body language. Some people whispered, some teased lightly, but they didn't care. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were just two people finding comfort in each other. One day they didn't meet. The young man waited longer than usual. He kept looking toward the path, but she never came. A strange worry grew inside him. He tried to push it away, telling himself she was probably busy the next day. She also didn't come. He felt the empty seat beside him more than he ever expected. The place felt colder. The air felt heavier. For the first time, he realized how important she had become in his life. He didn't say it out loud, but he missed her deeply. After 3 days, she finally walked toward him again. She looked tired. Her smile was smaller. He didn't ask many questions. He just said he was glad to see her. She nodded softly. Later that evening, she shared a little of her truth. She said life was not always easy for her. She carried worries that she didn't like to share. She didn't go into details. She didn't have to. He understood without needing full answers. He didn't judge her. He didn't pressure her. He simply told her that she didn't have to disappear without a word next time. His voice was gentle, not angry. She felt warmth in her heart hearing those words. She felt like someone cared enough to miss her. From that moment, their bond grew stronger. They started trusting each other more. They shared thoughts they never shared with others. Fear of failure. Fear of loneliness. Fear of being forgotten. They learned that love doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it arrives like a quiet sunrise, soft, slow, warm. They started to feel comfortable sitting closer, not touching, but feeling the warmth of each other's presence. Sometimes they sat in silence and just listened to the wind. Those moments felt full, not empty. One evening, she asked him something simple but deep. She asked him why he always stayed. He thought for a moment and then said he stayed because being there felt right. That answer stayed in her heart. He wanted to tell her how he felt, but he was afraid. He didn't want to destroy what they had. She felt the same fear. Both hearts were filled with feelings that were too big for words. Instead of saying anything, they let their actions speak. He offered his support in silence. She offered her trust in small ways. Every shared smile, every quiet conversation, and every silent moment built something beautiful between them. They didn't realize it, but they were slowly falling in love. Not the kind of love that makes noise, but the kind that changes the way your heart beats. By the end of that part of their journey, both of them knew something had changed forever. They had found a safe place in each other, and their story was only beginning. Life had been quiet and gentle for them. It never stays peaceful forever. One day, the young woman faced a challenge that no one could have expected. It started with small changes, tiredness that did not go away. Long pauses in her speech, moments when she looked lost in thought. At first, she tried to ignore it, hoping it would pass, but the problem slowly grew bigger. Something in her life shifted. She had to face a struggle that scared her deeply. The young man noticed it almost immediately. He could see the shadow of worry in her eyes, even when she tried to smile. The first time he saw her coming home looking exhausted, he offered her a seat and some tea. He didn't ask many questions. He just made space for her to rest. He realized that this time, words were not enough. This problem required patience, care, and presence. She tried to carry it alone at first, believing she had to handle everything herself, but he didn't let her. Slowly, he became part of her daily life in ways he never had before. He would check on her in the mornings, asking about her day gently. He would bring small meals, help with chores, and sometimes just sit quietly beside her when she didn't want to talk. His presence became a steady comfort she could rely on. There were days when the struggle felt heavier than either of them could handle. She cried silently in the middle of the night. He would sit by her side, offering a hand or a soft word, never forcing her to speak. There were days when he felt helpless, wishing he could carry the pain for her, but he couldn't. All he could do was stay and remind her that she was not alone, even though the problem was serious. They didn't let it break their bond. Their friendship, now turning into love, became a shield for both of them. When the world outside felt harsh and unfair, they found strength in each other. He learned how to listen without giving advice unless asked. She learned that sharing her fears didn't make her weak. It made her human. The young woman sometimes felt guilty for needing so much care. She didn't want to trouble him. She worried that her problems would push him away, but he never left. He never judged. His love, though quiet and unspoken, became stronger because of the hardships. He understood that real love is not just about joy and laughter. It is also about standing together during storms. Friends and neighbors noticed the change too. They saw how he stayed with her during difficult days, how he helped without hesitation, and how she leaned on him without fear. Some people commented, some whispered, but neither of them cared. They were building a bond that was private, deep, and unbreakable. One evening, the young woman broke down completely. The worry she had been holding inside spilled out. She admitted things she had never told anyone. Her voice shook. Her hands trembled. For a moment, she felt as if the weight of the world was too much. He didn't flinch. He didn't try to fix it with words or actions. He simply held her hand, a quiet anchor in the storm of her emotions. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Some moments were filled with tears, others with small joys that felt brighter because they were hard-earned. She learned to trust him completely, and he learned to care without expecting anything in return. Every day, they grew closer, not because of shared happiness, but because they faced the pain together. During this time, the young man discovered a new side of himself. He realized that love was not about grand gestures or romantic words. Love was patience, loyalty, and quiet support. It was showing up when it was difficult. It was holding someone's hand in silence, knowing that no words were needed to communicate what mattered most. The young woman also discovered something she had never believed before. She learned that needing someone did not make her weak. Accepting help, trusting someone fully, and sharing her fears made her stronger. And she realized that love could exist quietly, without loud declarations, without promises written in the air. It could exist in actions, in small gestures, in steady presence. One night, after a particularly hard day, they sat together looking out of the window. The world outside was dark, but the room was warm. They didn't speak much. Words weren't necessary. They just sat there, together. The young man held a cup of tea, and she held his hand. The simplicity of the moment felt perfect. It was not a moment of happiness only, but of survival, resilience, and unspoken love. Through this struggle, they learned how to communicate in ways beyond words. A glance could convey reassurance. A touch could bring comfort. Silence could be filled with understanding. Their bond grew not in the easy days, but in the hardest ones. There were also moments of doubt. The young woman sometimes wondered if she was too much, if she was asking too much from someone who didn't owe her anything. The young man sometimes questioned if he was enough, if his efforts were making a difference. But every time they looked at each other, every time they shared a quiet moment, they found the answer. Being together, supporting each other, surviving together, that was enough. That was love. They began to celebrate the small victories, however tiny. A day when she felt stronger, a smile that lasted longer than the previous day, a peaceful night without tears. These small successes became reasons to hope, reasons to stay. And with each small victory, their hearts grew closer. The town around them continued its quiet life. People went about their routines. Shops opened and closed. Seasons changed. But in their corner, time felt different. Every day was a test, but also a proof of their quiet devotion. Their love was not loud. It was not celebrated with grand gestures. It existed in actions, in loyalty, in endurance, in simple human kindness. One afternoon, the young woman said something quietly. She said that without him, she didn't know how she would have faced her problems. She didn't cry this time. Her voice was calm, her eyes steady. The young man felt his chest filled with warmth. He didn't reply with words. He didn't have to. His hand on hers, the gentle squeeze, said everything. Months passed, and the hardest days became fewer, though not gone completely. She learned to face the world again, slowly, step by step, with him beside her. He learned to be patient, to trust in their shared strength, and to love quietly, without expecting recognition. Together, they became stronger than they ever were alone. During this part of their journey, they discovered the real meaning of love. It was not about perfect days or fairy tale moments. It was about staying together when the world turned heavy. It was about understanding without demanding. It was about giving without counting. And most of all, it was about being present when it mattered the most. The struggle they faced changed them forever. It tested them, taught them, and brought them closer than they could have imagined. Every act of care, every silent gesture, every moment of patience built the foundation of something deep, lasting, and real. By the end of this part of their story, both of them had learned something priceless. Love was not about how easy life could be, but about how someone could stand with you when life was hardest. And in that realization, they found something no one could take away, a bond that would continue to grow. Even through pain. They didn't know what the future held. They didn't plan it, but they knew that whatever came, they had each other. And sometimes, knowing that someone will stay beside you, quietly, patiently, lovingly, is enough to face anything. And so, through pain and struggle, they discovered the strength of their love. They learned that true love is not shown in words only, but in actions, patience, and unwavering presence. Their hearts had grown closer. Their bond had deepened in ways that nothing could break. After the long months of struggle, their love had changed. It was no longer quiet curiosity or shy smiles. It had grown into something stronger, deeper, and more patient. They had faced pain together and had survived. Every small act of care, every silent gesture, every night spent talking, quietly had built something unshakable between them. The young man had learned patience in a way he had never known. He understood that love was not about excitement or grand promises. It was about showing up every day, being steady, being there when it mattered most. He could see now that his care, even when unnoticed, was a form of love. It didn't need applause or recognition. He didn't expect anything in return. He simply wanted to be there for her, to give her strength, to walk beside her through life's difficulties. The young woman, too, had changed. She had learned that love could be quiet, gentle, and patient. It wasn't always about words or dramatic gestures. Sometimes, the smallest things meant the most: a warm cup of tea, a hand held in silence, someone waiting for you even when life feels too heavy. She trusted him fully now, in a way she had never trusted anyone. She knew that he would not leave, that he would not judge, that he would always be by her side. Their days together became simple, but full of meaning. They went on small walks, talking quietly about life. Sometimes they sat by the river, listening to the gentle flow of water, sharing dreams without the need to call them dreams. They talked about their childhood memories, the small hopes they had tucked away, and the fears they carried silently. They laughed at small jokes, teased each other gently, found comfort in the normalcy of these moments. Even in small challenges, their love showed its strength. There were days when she felt tired, worn out by her responsibilities, and he would help without complaint. There were moments when he felt anxious about his own limitations, and she would remind him gently that he was enough. They became each other's anchor, each other's safe place in a world that could be confusing and heavy. One evening, they found themselves watching the sunset from a small hill. The sky was painted with soft shades of orange and pink. They didn't speak much. The young man reached out and held her hand. It was a simple touch, but it carried years of silent care and unspoken love. They felt a warmth that came not from the sun, but from each other. As time went on, their bond became more visible to those around them. Friends noticed the quiet respect they had for each other. It's the way they didn't compete for attention, the way they offered care without asking for anything in return. People often commented on how calm and comfortable they seemed together, how their presence seemed to soothe each other. But for them, it was never about others noticing. It was about the private world they had built, a world where they felt safe and valued. One rainy day, they stayed inside, watching raindrops fall against the window. She shared memories from her childhood, stories of moments that had made her feel strong, moments that had made her feel lost. He listened patiently, never interrupting, never trying to rush her through the memories. He understood that listening itself was a gift. In that silence and attention, their hearts spoke more than words ever could. They also learned the value of patience with each other. There were times when she wanted to be quiet, when he wanted to give space, and they respected it. There were moments when misunderstandings arose, small disagreements over nothing important, and they learned to resolve them gently, without anger or harsh words. Love, they discovered, was not only about caring in good times, but also about navigating small challenges without letting them damage the bond they had built. The young man began to notice small things that made him love her more each day. The way her eyes sparkled when she laughed softly. The way she paused before answering difficult questions, showing thoughtfulness and care. The quiet confidence she had when facing challenges. Each detail felt like a treasure he wanted to protect. The young woman noticed the same about him. His quiet strength. The way he never forced her to be someone she was not. The patience he showed when life felt overwhelming. The kindness that flowed naturally from him. She realized that true love wasn't about excitement or passion alone. It was about finding someone who understood and supported you without asking for reward. There were moments of playfulness too. They shared small jokes, silly stories, and laughter that felt like music. Those moments reminded them that even in love that faced hardship, there was joy, light, and freedom. They realized that love could be serious, patient, and kind, and at the same time, it could be fun, lighthearted, and full of simple happiness. They also learned to celebrate small victories together. A day when she felt healthier. A day when he accomplished a small goal. A day when they laughed freely without worries. Each victory, no matter how small, became a shared joy that strengthened their bond. They didn't need grand celebrations. They celebrated simply, quietly, and meaningfully. Through these experiences, they discovered that love was not about perfection. It was about understanding, supporting, and accepting each other's flaws and struggles. It was about showing care, patience, and loyalty even when life became difficult. They realized that love in its purest form is not measured by grand gestures, but by the steady presence of someone who never leaves, no matter what. As the months passed, they grew closer. Their conversations became more open. They shared dreams they had never told anyone else. They spoke about hopes, fears, and the kind of future they wished for, not in loud, dramatic ways, but in honest, quiet moments that felt more real than anything else. The young man learned that he could express love in countless small ways. He learned to notice what she needed before she even spoke. A hot cup of tea on a cold day, a blanket when she felt tired, a hand held when words were not enough. Each act of care became a language of love, spoken without sound. The young woman discovered that she could rely fully on someone else without losing her independence or dignity. She learned that love could be a partnership, where support is given freely, without expectation, and received gratefully, without shame. She learned that love was not only about being happy together, but about facing life together, holding each other steady when the world became heavy. One afternoon, as they walked along a quiet street, he spoke softly about how he felt. He didn't use grand words. He didn't promise eternity. He simply said that being with her made life better, that she made him feel calm, strong, and understood. She listened quietly, and for a moment, their hearts seemed to speak without words. She didn't answer immediately, but the warmth in her eyes said everything he needed to know. From that day forward, their bond deepened in a way that felt unbreakable. They trusted each other fully. They understood each other's moods, needs, and thoughts without speaking. They laughed together, cried together, and grew stronger together. They realized that love, in its most real form, was not about drama or perfection. It was about loyalty, patience, understanding, and quiet devotion. Their love became a safe place for both of them. It was a space where fears could be shared, where silence could be comfortable, where the smallest gestures spoke louder than words. It was not always easy. Life continued to bring small challenges, but they faced them together, hand in hand, heart to heart, without hesitation or complaint. Through it all, they discovered the extraordinary beauty in ordinary moments. A shared smile over a cup of tea, a quiet walk in the evening, listening to the rainfall outside, sitting in silence while watching the sunset. Each moment became a testament to the depth of their love, a love that was patient, steady, and unwavering. By the end of this part of their story, they had learned the truest lessons of love. That love is not always loud. That love is patient, kind, and loyal. That love is shown in quiet acts, in presence, in understanding, and in standing together when life becomes hard. Their hearts had grown together, their bond had strengthened, and they had discovered the rare kind of love that lasts. Not because it is easy, but because it is real, and so, with patience, kindness, and quiet devotion, their love continued to grow. It became something rare and extraordinary, something that would carry them through the rest of their journey together. It was a love built not on promises or words, but on actions, loyalty, and the unwavering choice to stay beside each other no matter what. Time passed, and their lives continued in the rhythm they had quietly built together. They had learned to love not in grand declarations, but in small, meaningful actions. Each day added layers to their bond, layers that could not be broken by misunderstandings, distance, or time. They had grown to know each other deeply, not just the surface smiles or laughter, but the hidden fears, the silent worries, the soft dreams that few ever saw. The young man still arrived at their quiet place every evening, waiting for her presence, feeling calm when he saw her approach. He had learned patience in ways that had transformed him. He understood that love is not always spoken. Sometimes love is a hand offered without asking, a smile when the heart is heavy, or a presence that makes even silence feel complete. She, too, had changed profoundly. She'd learned that trusting someone fully, sharing fears, and leaning on another's support did not make her weak. It made her strong. She had discovered that love could exist quietly, without the need for grand gestures or constant reassurance. Sometimes a shared look, a gentle hand on the shoulder, or a cup of tea made more impact than 1,000 words. There were days when the world around them was harsh, when life tested them in small but significant ways. She would feel discouraged by challenges. He would feel uncertain about his own limits, and together they faced the moments that would have once seemed impossible. But each test brought them closer, teaching them that love is strongest, not in joy alone, but in perseverance through hardship. They had learned to celebrate the ordinary. A day without worry, a shared laugh, a comfortable silence, a simple call of these became treasures. They realized that happiness was not a destination, but a collection of small, cherished moments shared between hearts that truly understood each other. One evening, as they watched the sunset together, the sky glowing in warm shades of orange and pink, the young man reached for her hand. It was a gesture that had become natural over time. No words were necessary. That single touch spoke volumes: loyalty, care, understanding, and love that had grown quietly but powerfully. She squeezed his hand in return, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. As if acknowledging the bond they had nurtured through every trial and quiet moment, they began to dream together in ways that were gentle and realistic. They didn't speak of castles or riches or dramatic adventures. They spoke of small dreams, having a peaceful home, sharing meals together, walking quietly in the evenings, supporting each other in work and life, and facing challenges together with calm hearts. Their dreams were modest but meaningful, and each dream became a promise. Unspoken but understood. Through the years, they faced moments of doubt and fear, as every human life does. There were days when she worried that she was too much, that her struggles were a burden. There were times when he wondered if he was enough, if he could truly provide the support and care that she deserved. But every time they reminded each other quietly, through gestures and presence, that love was not about perfection, it was about staying together. Through every storm, every fear, every uncertainty, they discovered the extraordinary power of patience and understanding. They learned that love could flourish in silence, in attentiveness, and in small acts of care that went unnoticed by the world but were felt deeply in the heart. A cup of tea offered at the right moment, a comforting word, a gentle hand placed over another's, a smile that said, "I see you, I am here." These became the language of their love. Life, with all its unpredictability, continued around them. Seasons changed, people came and went, and the world moved forward. But in their quiet corner of life, they found constancy and calm. They had built a love that was steady, resilient, and enduring. They knew that the strength of their bond did not depend on words or recognition, but on the consistency of their care, the loyalty of their hearts, and the shared understanding that they would never walk alone. One rainy afternoon, as they sat together watching raindrops slide down the window, they reflected on the journey that had brought them here. They remembered the early days of shy glances, quiet conversations, and tentative gestures. They remembered the struggles that had tested their strength, and the nights filled with worry and tears. And yet every challenge had strengthened the connection between them, teaching them the true meaning of love: quiet, patient, unwavering, and selfless. The young man looked at her and realized that his love for her was no longer just a feeling, it was a choice. It's made every day, to stay, to care, to support, to understand. He did not need grand declarations to affirm it. His actions, steady and thoughtful, had become the most profound way to express what words could not. She, in turn, felt a deep gratitude for his presence. She understood that real love was not about being swept off the feet or living in constant excitement. It was about feeling safe, understood, and valued. It was about knowing that someone will stand by you, quietly and firmly, no matter what life brings. That was a love she could rely on, a love that had become a sanctuary for her heart. They had also learned to embrace imperfection. Life was not always easy. Their health was not always perfect, and the world was not always kind. Yet, in the midst of these imperfections, their love thrived. They discovered that happiness is not the absence of problems, but the presence of someone who chooses to stay with you through them. There were simple celebrations along the way. A day when she smiled more freely than usual. A day when he accomplished something small that mattered to him. Quiet evenings spent walking together or reading side by side. These small victories became moments of joy, reminders that love was not measured by grandeur, by the ability to cherish life together. As the years continued, they became each other's home. Not a physical house, but a space in the heart where both felt safe, valued, and loved. They knew that even if life changed, even if circumstances shifted, the bond they shared would remain. They had built something enduring. It's a love that could not be shaken by time or hardship. People around them noticed the calm and warmth between them. Friends admired the steady support they gave each other, the patience they shared, and the deep understanding that seemed to flow naturally between them. Yet they did not seek attention or praise. Their love was private, gentle, and powerful in its simplicity. On quiet nights, they would sit together under the stars, holding hands, sharing thoughts without speaking, feeling the comfort of shared presence. In those moments, they realized that love does not need to be dramatic or loud to be extraordinary. The most beautiful love is often quiet, patient, and steady, a love that chooses to endure, to care, and to remain. No matter the challenges, through all the years they kept learning about each other. Small habits, tiny gestures, quiet needs, unspoken worries, all of these became part of the rhythm of their relationship. They discovered that true love is not a fleeting passion, but a continuous understanding, a shared journey, and a choice to remain together. Even in the hardest times, they never needed to declare their love with words. It was visible in the way he held her hand during quiet moments, in the way she smiled when he offered support, in the way they shared life's simplest pleasures together. Their love was selfless, loyal, and enduring. It did not demand recognition. It simply existed, quietly and beautifully. In every shared glance, every gentle touch, in every act of care, as their story reached its later years, they reflected on what they had built together. They understood that they had created something rare and extraordinary. They had learned that love is measured not by excitement or drama, but by consistency, patience, care, and unwavering support. They had discovered that the truest form of love is not shown in words, but in actions, presence, and loyalty. Even as life continued to bring small challenges, they faced each day together, hand in hand, heart to heart. They had learned that love is strongest not in perfection or constant happiness, but in the ability to endure together, to give and receive care, and to remain steadfast. Even when life is difficult, their love had become timeless, not because of grand gestures, but because it was built on trust, patience, kindness, and understanding. It was a love that had survived struggles, embraced imperfections, and grown stronger with every passing day. And in this quiet, steady, extraordinary love, they found everything they had ever hoped for: a safe place in each other's hearts, a bond that could not be broken, and the purest example of what it truly means to care for someone fully and completely in the end. Their love story was not one of dramatic highs or perfect moments. It was a story of two human hearts finding each other, staying together, and creating a life filled with understanding, loyalty, and quiet joy. It was a love that would live forever, not in fame, words, or recognition, but in the enduring bond between two people who chose each other every day, in every moment, through every challenge, and through every quiet, ordinary yet extraordinary day of life together. Life, for them, had settled into a quiet rhythm, yet it never became predictable. Even after years of understanding, care, and shared experiences, every day brought new lessons, small surprises, and deeper insights into each other's hearts. They had learned to appreciate the ordinary, to find joy in the subtle, and to treasure the kind of moments that often go unnoticed by the world. Their love had grown steady, strong, and patient, but it was never stagnant. It kept evolving, shaping who they were and how they faced life together. One morning, the young man woke earlier than usual. He looked outside and noticed the sun spilling gold across the quiet streets. There was a calmness in the air, a softness that seemed to call for reflection. He made tea, carefully setting it on the table, and watched as she slowly entered the room. Her eyes, tired from the weeks of work and little sleep, softened when she saw him. There was no need for words. The tea, the quiet smile, the gentle presence, these spoke louder than any words could. They had long learned that love did not need to be spoken to exist. It lived in gestures, in attention, in patience. She sat beside him and rested her hand on his for a moment. The warmth from that simple touch filled the room. They did not rush into conversation. Instead, they let the silence stretch comfortably, embracing the peace that existed between them. As the day progressed, small responsibilities filled their hours. He went to work. She tended to her own projects, but their connection remained unbroken. They shared short messages, quick calls, and sometimes just a glance when passing each other in the hallway. They had learned that love does not demand constant attention, yet its presence could be felt in the quietest moments. That evening, they went for a long walk, a tradition they had maintained for years. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of flowers from nearby gardens. They talked about small things at first, the work that had kept them busy, the neighbors' stories, and little events from their day. Gradually, the conversation deepened. They spoke of hopes that had grown, dreams that had shifted, and fears that still lingered in quiet corners of their hearts. The young woman shared a fear she had held quietly for a long time. She worried about growing old, about whether life would continue to bring challenges they could handle together. She admitted that sometimes she felt fragile, that life's unpredictability frightened her. He listened patiently, holding her hand and offering reassurance without judgment. His presence alone provided a strength she could lean on, a calm that reminded her they were facing life as a team. He, in turn, shared his own doubts. He had always feared that he might not be enough, that the care he offered was too little for all she deserved. He spoke quietly, almost hesitantly, but she reassured him. She reminded him of all the ways he had been her anchor, her comfort, her safe place. Together, they discovered that love was a balance, a shared space where both could give and receive, where each heart's vulnerability was met with patience, understanding, and care. The night grew darker, but their walk continued. They passed by quiet streets, softly lit by lamps, and found a bench near a small garden. Sitting there, they looked up at the stars. Neither spoke for a long while. The silence was not empty. It was full of understanding, trust, and unspoken promises. They knew that life would continue to challenge them, that moments of worry, sadness, or doubt would arise. But they also knew they would face these together, side by side. A few days later, the young woman fell ill. It was not serious, but it reminded them both of life's fragility. The young man stayed by her side, bringing warm blankets, preparing meals, and ensuring she rested well. He never complained, never made her feel guilty, and never left her side. She realized once again that love is proven not in words or grand gestures, but in steady presence, in caring actions, and in the quiet dedication to another's well-being. During this time, they reflected on the journey they had shared. They remembered the shy glances in the beginning, small conversations that had grown into trust, the moments of struggle that had strengthened their bond, and the countless simple acts of care that had quietly built a love deeper than either had imagined. They understood that true love is rarely dramatic. It is patient, loyal, and constant. It endures because of small, consistent acts and unwavering choice. They began planning small dreams together, not grand adventures, but things that mattered deeply to both of them. They spoke of creating a small garden, of collecting books that inspired them, of cooking meals together on quiet evenings, and of walking through the streets of their town, hand in hand, no matter how life changed around them. Each shared dream was modest but meaningful, a reflection of the love they had nurtured over years. One evening, the young man surprised her with a small gesture. He had arranged a quiet picnic under a tree near the river. There were no elaborate decorations or expensive gifts, just a simple blanket, some food, and the peaceful view of the water reflecting the evening sky. She laughed softly, touched by the thoughtfulness. The gesture was small, but in its simplicity, it captured everything they had built together: care, attention, thoughtfulness, and love that required no grand statement. As the sun set painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, they sat in comfortable silence. They held hands and listened to the gentle sound of the river. In that quiet, they understood that life could continue to bring challenges, but their love was a constant they could rely on. They had learned that the most extraordinary love often exists in ordinary moments, in gestures that are small but deeply meaningful. Over time, they continued to face life together, stronger than before. Each challenge, each worry, each small obstacle was met with patience, understanding, and care. They celebrated small victories, the days when health returned, when work went smoothly, when laughter filled their home. These moments became treasures, reminders that love is not measured by grandeur, but by consistency, support, and shared presence. They also learned to forgive each other's imperfections. No one was perfect, and they had their disagreements, moments of frustration, and miscommunications. But they had discovered the power of patience and understanding. They listened, they corrected gently, and they moved forward together. They realized that true love is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to navigate it with respect, empathy, and a shared commitment to stay together. As the seasons changed, they continued their quiet traditions. Long walks, shared meals, evenings watching the stars, and small gestures of care became the rhythm of their lives. They understood that happiness is not constant, but love provides a foundation that allows two hearts to face the ups and downs of life without fear. Years passed, and their bond deepened further. They grew older, changed in ways life inevitably brought, but their connection remained steady. They had learned that love is not fleeting. It is cultivated through patience, understanding, and consistent care. It does not fade with time when it is built on a foundation of trust, loyalty, and shared life. One quiet evening, they sat by the window watching the rain. The young woman rested her head on the young man's shoulder, and he held her hand gently. They did not speak. Words were unnecessary. Their shared presence, the comfort of their closeness, and the quiet understanding between them conveyed more than words ever could. In that moment, they felt gratitude for every struggle, every quiet gesture, and every moment that had led them here. They understood that life would continue to bring challenges, but they had learned that love is strongest when it is steady, patient, and enduring. They had discovered that love is proven not in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in the choice to remain, to care, and to understand every day. Through all these years, they had become each other's home. It's not a physical place, but a space in the heart where both felt safe, understood, and cherished. They knew that even as the world changed, their bond would remain unbroken. Their love was timeless, built not on perfection, but on devotion, patience, and quiet understanding. In the final reflection of this part of their journey, they realized something profound. The most extraordinary love is often quiet, patient, and resilient. It is not always visible to the world, but it is felt deeply in every action, every gesture, and every moment shared. It is a love that grows through trials, strengthens through challenges, and endures because it is chosen every day without expectation, without condition, and without hesitation. And so, their story continued not as a tale of drama or spectacle, but as the story of two hearts who chose each other every day, through every hardship, every quiet evening, and every ordinary yet extraordinary moment of life. Their love was real, enduring, and pure, a love that could survive time, hardship, and all of life's unpredictability. It was the kind of love that would remain in memory long after words faded, a silent testament to the power of patience, care, and unwavering presence. They had found the rarest kind of happiness, not in grand gestures or perfect days, but in knowing that someone would always stay beside them, quietly, faithfully, and lovingly. And in that, they found a peace and joy that only true, patient, human love can bring, a love that would live on quietly and powerfully. In every heartbeat and every shared moment for as long as life allowed,